toll spiked up. Next. And so here's more articles. What can be done to prevent mass shootings at public places? And they got a couple of yahoos who say they need scanning devices everywhere, every movie theater, anywhere there's a lot of people gathered. Take guns away from the nuts. That's what Claire Barnes says. It would be prohibitively expensive to put metal detectors everywhere. That's, of course, actually true. You're not going to stop anything. So they have two people in favor of total control freak syndrome and one person who realizes you can't protect everyone in society at all times. Life is risky. You could die anytime driving down the road, etc. Just because you have police on the highway doesn't mean bad things aren't still going to happen. That doesn't mean you need 10 times the police on the highway. So you see them rolling out the propaganda, but for what purpose? Again, if it's a false flag, who benefits? If it's not a false flag, it's the same question. It's a chemistry conversion. You have one set of events, you want to enter into another state where you have the policies you want. What do you need to get there? You need a catalyst. Just like 9/11 was a catalyst for the whole war on terror, these shootings are a catalyst for the same script they've been using since the Oklahoma City bombings and since the Loeffner shooting. Now, what did they do this time? They immediately accidentally said this guy was a member of the Tea Party, just as they did with Jared Lee Loeffner after the Giffords shooting. And of course, they did similar demonization of the right wing during the Oklahoma City script. Now, here's David Gregory rolling out the exact same talking point we saw after the Giffords shooting about the heated political rhetoric. Remember that sheriff in Arizona? Let's roll this clip and let's see how similar it is.
You've worked in a political administration, you deal with counter-terror threats, but you also paid attention as someone who thinks about threats around the country to political dialogue, the coarsening of dialogue across the media spectrum, from entertainment to news and commentary. And I was thinking, hearkening back to President Obama's words after Gabby Giffords was shot, and then to Bill Clinton back in 1995 after Oklahoma City, and I'll put something he said up on the screen. He said back then, President Clinton, "We hear so many loud and angry voices in America today whose sole goal seems to be to try to keep some people as paranoid as possible and the rest of us all torn up and upset with each other. They spread hate. They leave the impression that by their very words that violence is acceptable." Let me emphasize, as we sit here today, we know nothing about motivation in this particular case, political or otherwise. But President Clinton's words back in 1995 could be true today, couldn't they, about how some of the public discourse can fall on more vulnerable ears?
So there is a political fight on over who's going to benefit from these tragedies. Gun control is in the air, but obviously they can't take it on in a forward assault fashion, so they're looking for any way to sneak it under the rug, to sweep this stuff under, to circumvent the normal avenues and sneak in some form of gun control on the back of whatever tragedy they could find, whether it was staged or whether it was just seized upon and happened to come along at a very convenient time. But, of course, we have in the media Mayor Bloomberg. He calls for gun control after the Colorado shooting. Bill Kristol, supposedly a Republican, and he calls for gun control, says the president needs the courage to take it on and that people shouldn't be able to have semiotic weapons that could fire 100 bullets. He wants gun control. Rupert Murdoch, owner of Fox News and, of course, the whole larger company, he wants gun control, also supposedly a Republican. Calderon, president of Mexico, cannot get enough gun control. Anything that happens, Fast and Furious, even before Fast and Furious, any kind of North American agenda meeting, he wants gun control in America. They already have total gun control in Mexico. It's a nightmare state, but he once again wants it after the Colorado shooting. Senator Feinstein, well, of course, she wants the gun control, but it's a bad time, she says. It's a bad time for gun control. Here's a related article in CNN. Little to gain, lots to lose for Obama and Romney on guns. And they basically talk about how great gun control would be, but how it's the wrong time for gun control because all these polls show Americans won't go for it. Oh, I thought it's so damned important. You got to have gun control. It's to save lives, but it's the wrong time. You're just going to sit cowardly silent and not call for gun control? No, why don't you show who you really are, Senator Feinstein, and all the rest of you who have your own concealed carry permits, who there's photos on the web of you firing weapons, but you want to take away everyone else's weapons, their right to defend themselves. You can see the naked ambition for the gun grab. And of course, Kurt Nimmo wrote about this article over the weekend. The Council on Foreign Relations has said, don't worry about Hillary Clinton's small arms treaty. Don't worry, Americans. This isn't really gun control. It's about international trade. Don't worry. Nothing's going to happen. Well, look, you can see where they're going with all this. But the fact is maybe shocking to you. Aurora, Colorado, already had complete gun control. They were one of the most hardcore Nazi gun control cities in the entire country. You couldn't have guns there. If you pulled out a gun in that theater, they would have arrested you too, even if you shot the killer. Maybe they would have some sympathy and drop the charges, but technically speaking, you couldn't have a concealed weapon in there. We all know what that policy leads to. It's victim disarmament, and unfortunately, 12 people were killed in that theater. Another 58, total of 70 people were injured, shot, what have you. How could we prevent this tragedy? Obviously, even though we can spend billions and billions, you can't spend trillions and trillions on having body scanners at every last place in public. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of movie theater chains, how many shopping malls across the country. You couldn't really have security everywhere, and you can't take away all the guns because of that pesky Second Amendment. Well, Mike Adams actually has the solution. It's a bit of a riddle. See if you can figure it out. It's the answer, the low-cost solution to how they could have stopped this theater massacre shooter or anyone else shooting. And it requires no police. It costs the taxpayers no money. It requires no upfront paperwork. It protects innocent lives. It's deployed in as little as about 5 seconds. It works anywhere, everywhere. It deters violent crime. It makes bad guys flee immediately. It's easy to learn. It functions at the local level, and it does not require control or intervention by the United Nations or any other entity. Have you guessed it? Oh, you're seeing footage of it. Here's another shooter. Two shooters, I think, who went into this computer lab, this hangout. I don't know exactly what it was. They were robbing people. It was a casino, actually, but it had a computer stations in there. Oh, it's a guy with a concealed carry, a 71-year-old old man who stops these burglars, ends the crime. They run away. They're panicked. No, not a guy with a gun, not an armed senior citizen, not a citizen with a gun. We don't want to commit a crime here. Let's get out of here. Could that be the solution? What if people were concealed carry in the theater? Could they have stopped this guy? I think it's a brilliant question. But YouTube, on the other hand, doesn't want you to see that video. They want you to see every violent video game in the world, every clip from every Hollywood movie you could find on YouTube, all kinds of violence. But you can't watch the video of the 71-year-old man who they basically blacked out of the media, barely reported on how he stopped a holdup of what, that must have been 50, 100 people in that room. He stopped them, ran those robbers away, and but you can't see that video if you're not 18 and logged on their little identity center on Google-controlled YouTube. Yes, we have that story up at INFOWARS.com. You can still watch the video. It's still there, but a video can't go viral when everyone who wants to watch it has to log in. It slows the video and basically kills it. That's the video you just saw. I don't know if we want to roll it again, but if you wanted to watch the video of how concealed carry could stop burglars, shooters, murderers in the progress of their crime, well, let's hope you're 18. Let's verify that it's okay for you to see this. Even though there's nothing graphic in the video, it just shows self-defense. It shows fighting back and not being a victim, whether you're in a casino or anywhere else in public. That's the only way to be protected in public. Police can't stop you. It'll take them a minimum of 5 to 8 minutes if you're in the best cities in the country. If you're in Detroit, by the way, they won't show up for hours and hours, and in one case that was in the papers, more than 24 hours for murders. The police can't and won't save you. It doesn't matter if they duplicate, triplicate. It doesn't matter if they have 10 times, 100 times the cops. Cops can't protect you from this stuff. Only the people already there on the scene of the crime. And I've said enough. And finally, tonight on the Batman massacre, tragic as it is, was it also part of the larger predictive programming? We know all kinds of weird stuff have been inserted into movies, books, you name it. And here is the 1986 Dark Knight Returns Batman comic book, and it portrays a theater shooting. This is not the only place this has popped up in the media, but very interesting that this was one of the key source materials for this whole trilogy of Dark Knight branded Batman movies. And here is this guy who goes into a porn theater. He's upset with the people in the theater. They even have a mind control thing in the background in the second panel. I don't know if you could see it there. In the final panel, they have 3 slain in Batman-inspired porn theater shootout. Details to follow. Was this just a coincidence? Certainly, if it was eerie. Or is it part of the larger pattern of predictive programming? Well, frankly, that's a subject for a whole nother show. We'll get into that someday here on the INFOWARS Nightly News. Now, we have Alex's analysis coming up on the other side, but first, the quote of the day. Those who manipulate the organized habits and opinions of the masses constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. And that, of course, is Edward Bernays, the mainstream voice on propaganda, the man who coined the term, the man who started this entire 20th century mind control manipulation for the purposes of the controllers. We'll be back on the INFOWARS Nightly News after this.
Have you been to InfoWarsShop.com lately? Express your inner patriot with these brand new InfoWars t-shirts. Say it loud with the InfoWars Bullhorn shirt. Or educate the sheeple with the Bill of Rights shirt. Grope the public's mind with the TSA shirt. And with this shirt, you can let the dark side know of the Rebel Alliance's power. All available at InfoWarsShop.com.
Sick of the globalist eugenicist control freaks adding poison to your water and laughing as you get sick and die? Start purifying your water with ProPure. My friends, I've done a lot of research, and the best gravity filter out there, bar none, is ProPure, and it's available discounted at InfoWars.com. Its filters are silver impregnated to prevent bacterial growth. There's no priming required. It's NSF 42 certified. Optional fluoride filters can reduce fluoride up to 95%. Easy to set up and use.